everyone once again to our March 2022 meeting. This meeting is a hybrid meaning that we are meeting in person, and we have certain of our council members who are also meeting remotely as permitted under Governor Hochul's exceptions to the public meeting law. I'd like to start with calling the meeting to order and the roll call, please.
Joseph D. Benedetto.
Present.
Wing Yu. Present. Anne-Marie Knievel. Present. Sung Young Lee.
Present.
Joseph Chow. He's on his list. We'll come back to him. Rashmi Krishnaraj.
Present.
Michelle Frederick.
Present.
Sana Sayed.
Present.
And Catherine Pack.
Wonderful. So we do have a quorum present. We have some members that are on their way, but we can get started. Let's start with the approval of our February minutes. Council members should have received an email with the February minutes. I just want to ask if we have consensus to approve the minutes, or if anyone has any questions or corrections.
Sorry.
Okay, do we have consensus on the approval of our minutes? So,
Motion to approve February minutes.
okay. So, when you made the motion and Anne-Marie seconded the motion, so the February minutes are hereby approved. Welcome, everyone. We have a busy evening, as usual. I'm going to be very brief with my remarks, and then I'm going to, there's a couple of changes on the agenda that you have here, but we have the superintendent's presentation. We have a state of the district, which is going to be presented by Dr. Antona. We have the fair student funding presentation, and then we have the digital citizenship presentation by Louis Latino. Following that, we will discuss our candidates that we'll do some public speaking, and then we'll talk about the candidates before we adjourn for our business meeting. So I want to welcome everyone, and I want to welcome the students also as we started week 1 of back to school with the option of not having to put our masks on. As you see, I'm sitting here without a mask, and we respect those that want the mask, but I think there are a lot of changes that are happening, and we look forward to getting back to some type of normalcy. The question I have for the community, and probably for our superintendent, is whether or not our students are socially and emotionally ready to go back to school or to take off the masks. I say this because my own daughter seems to want to wear her mask at school, and I question, and most of the kids in her class are the same, and I question if it's something that they've become accustomed to, or if there's something that needs to be addressed by the school in terms of getting back to our normal routine. But that's something for the future, or maybe we can talk about it at a later time. I also want to let the public know that I've been in touch with the president of the CEC for District 26, who recently signed a resolution regarding high school admissions and the criteria. I am told that there are certain changes. Well, I'm aware of the changes. I'm not sure if this council is aware of the changes to high school enrollment. But I was asked to present that resolution before this council I feel that before we can even discuss the resolution, we need to know a little bit more about high school enrollment. So I'm kind of going to put face on the spot, Juliana, and our administrative assistant here, Carly. If you can look into possibly having someone from enrollment come to our next meeting so we can learn about what the criteria is for middle school students to apply to high schools, because it seems to be a changing issue that was definitely a problem for District 26, which affects our district as well, as we have students in our district that go to District 26 high schools. So I think I'd like to have somebody from high school enrollment come into our next meeting so we can learn a little bit about it and hopefully understand it before we discuss even entertaining a resolution. Okay, so that's something I'm going to ask. I'll talk about it more during our business meeting. And that's all I have to report to you right now. And I'm going to pass the microphone to our superintendent, Danielle DeMango.
Thank you, Joe. So while I think Louis is going to pull up my superintendent's report, I would like to respond to your question and concern around masks in schools, and absolutely it is something that we have been talking about as an adult community, but I have also visited schools, as has Dr. Daytona, and I know that a lot of the adults in the building are really speaking to students about health decisions, right? And students really being in touch with how they feel about wearing masks. We know that social emotional learning is a huge part of the work that we do. I actually engaged in a very nice conversation with students just yesterday where I was in a room full of students and their personal health choice was to wear masks. So we talked about maintaining safety and that masks are one of the ways that we prevent the spread of COVID. We also talked about social distancing and hand washing and making sure that we continue to do those things as well, but that it's really important for everyone to own their own decisions about health and safety and wellness. And we should be able to respect one another and have conversations with each other about how we feel. So we are starting to engage in that. We know that many students, especially our youngest learners, it may be all they know about being in school. Our kindergarten, first graders, and second graders. So what is it like to be in school without a mask? But also being in schools, I've heard kids say, like, I didn't even know what you looked like. So I think that it's an exciting time to know that globally we are getting better. That does not mean that we should not continue to be cautious, and we are still continuing to talk about that in our schools. Adults and families, and I know many of our principals are still continuing to talk about these things at safety meetings and SLT meetings. So just make sure that if you have any questions or concerns that you can call your individual school, but certainly make sure that you're speaking to your students about how they feel about taking off their masks if that is their choice. And if there's any concerns, you can contact your child's teacher, guidance counselor, parent coordinator. We're all here to talk about that and to support each other through this transition. Okay. I just saw it up there. Where'd it go? Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm really excited to talk to you guys and go through my report, and there's a lot of really amazing things happening in the district that I want to present. So I'm going to present just a couple of information bits as well as show you some great things that are happening across our district, things that have happened during the month of February and all our celebrations. And then I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. D'Antona. He's going to do the state of the district and really talk about how we're very excited around the changes that are happening from our initiatives in student outcomes. And then we want to show you specifically some of the things that our students are doing around Civics for All. And we have somebody here presenting alongside Dr. D'Antona, Melinda Willens, who's been a support across our schools this year in our Civics for All initiative. So we're really excited to talk about that as well. So March is Women's History Month, and one of my favorite poets, Maya Angelou, talks about how important it is for us to recognize and celebrate our heroes and sheroes. So I am really looking forward to seeing the work that our schools are doing in celebration of Women's History Month this month.
Today happens to be International
Women's Day, yes. Happening now in enrollment. Middle school applications are closed. High school applications are still open, and the deadline to apply has been extended to March 11th. This is also the deadline to submit any additional materials, such as virtual auditions, if applicable. Kindergarten application is now closed, but you can still participate in admissions. Add yourself to programs waitlists today with your myschools.newyorkcity account. Happening next in enrollment, students who took the Shazat in December 2021 will receive their results, including any offers to the 8 testing specialized high schools in April 2022. The Chancellor is offering town halls for families on COVID-19 vaccinations. So the DOE, in conjunction with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, is hosting 2 town halls for families of children ages 5 to 11 regarding the importance of the COVID-19 vaccine. The dates are March 14th from 6 to 7:30. Registration opens on March 9th for the March 14th town hall session, which will be held in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and Arabic. Dial-in details specific to each language are available via the registration link. March 16th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Registration begins on March 9th for the March 16th town hall session, which will be held in English, Spanish, Cantonese, and Bangala. Dial-in details specific to each language are also available via the registration link. School COVID-19 policy updates, early childhood mask reminders. The indoor mask mandate as of today is still active for life, early learn, infants and toddlers, 3K, pre-K, and 4410 classrooms, including those in family child care programs. Children 2 years old and older and all staff and visitors in these classrooms must continue to wear a face covering indoors. Next, celebrating our schools. So I'd like to congratulate Principal Teresa Mishar from Junior High School 185 for being honored this weekend by the Middle School Principals Association. I had the honor of being there with her of NYC. She was one of the only principals selected and represented for Queens, so congratulations, Ms. Mishar. We thank her for being an amazing leader and for everything she does for the children of District 25. So, celebrating our schools in celebration of Ms. Mishar. Ms. Mishar, I want to talk about Junior High School 185 as a community. Every day used Google Slides in each of their classrooms. This month, they celebrated Black History Month, and here are some examples of slides made by students and or their teachers. So the first slide is an introduction to Black History Month and talking about how every February we honor the contributions and sacrifices of African Americans who have helped shape our nation. Next slide. Celebrating current authors, Malika Grayson graduated from Adelphi University right here in Garden City, and the work that she has done around her degree and PhD in mechanical engineering. Celebrating the once hidden figures of NASA. You could just keep flipping. And celebrating Salva Dutt, who wrote A Long Walk to Water, which is part of 185's curriculum. So we're really excited that those connections are being made. And as you can see with each slide, there are also videos for students to watch on their own and independently. Bessie Coleman, a first American aviator. And then celebrating Black athletes at the 2022 Olympics. And Jerry Lawson, who was one of the first video gamers of the 70s. I don't know, I know that. I think I know that from these slides today. And celebrating the first Black Supreme Court woman nominee, Johnny Brown Jackson. And on my birthday, she was nominated. A very special day. And the most amazing part, celebrating their very own safety agent, Mr. Taylor, who has worked at Junior High School 185 for 34 years. So we really, really love and appreciate the work that Junior High School 185 did for Black History Month. Okay, next slide. Celebrating our schools, our 100th Day Cultural Door Celebration happened across many of our schools, but we're highlighting 163. Every school staff member selected a country and decorated. Well, I'm going to flip through because it's being blocked there. And decorated with 100 facts, pictures, decorations that are associated with that country. I also visited IS 25, where they did something very similar. They surveyed the students to ask all of the countries that are represented in their school community, and they made a door for every community is represented in IS 25. So great job. And I can go on forever and ever in the amazing celebrations that happen in every single school in celebration of Lunar New Year. But I thought the cutest was the work that happened at our pre-K center. They celebrated Lunar New Year through art, stories, games, and music. I watched 165's parade, 169, 237. The celebrations were just really amazing. PS32. I do recommend that our CEC members next year just go into any one of your schools and see the Lunar New Year's celebrations that are happening. It's amazing. But these I thought were really cute. The games and the artwork that they made. I love the little tiger hats, and the students just had a great time that day. So congratulations to our pre-K center. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. D'Antona. Dr. D'Antona is going to do a state of the district in terms of benchmarking. So we will be benchmarking for our DCEP goals, the goals that we once presented at the beginning of the school year, the things that we're working on with our schools. So Dr. D'Antona.
Thank you, Mr. Mango. Good evening, everyone. Hello to all of our CEC members. Good to see all of you guys. So I'm going to run through just pretty quickly where we are as a district in relationship to our goals that were developed at our district leadership team. And each of these was developed in alignment with citywide expectations. There were 6 elements that we had to connect to. In terms of our DCEP, which did shift, at some point during this process. So our original goals had shifted a little bit come November, December, where our district leadership team had to come back to the drawing board around these elements that you see here. The first of which is focusing on early childhood literacy. Let's just go back to that for 1 second. The second one around ensuring a culturally relevant, sustaining curriculum. Developing digital citizens. Investing in special education, providing greater support for our multilingual learners, and lastly, around ensuring our students are college and career ready. And some of these we've connected in ways that you'll see in a few moments that while it says ensuring students are college and career ready, we've connected that into mathematics, and you'll kind of hear a little bit why in just a few moments. Okay, Louis. So our first goal is around focusing on early childhood literacy. The intent of this goal was to really focus on the gaps in learning that we've seen historically, but certainly in the initial assessments that we gave in the beginning of the school year, with the intention of increasing specifically for our targeted subgroups, which were our Hispanic and Black populations, with the goal of certainly improving all students, but a targeted attention on these particular subgroups. The measurement that we were using for this was the Acadians Assessment. All of our children in grades kindergarten through 2 are all being administered this assessment 3 times a year, one in the fall, one they just administered and completed. The last day to assess was February 18th. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about what we've noticed as a result. So, and this is why I have this one here, just in case it was cut off. So, from the beginning of the year assessment to the mid-year assessment, we did see an overall change of 3% for students in general from the beginning of the year to now. We saw a 4.5% reduction in number of students that were well below grade level, which is an important thing. We certainly want to continue to move our students up. In general, overall, our all student subgroup was at around 52% of our students that were on or above grade level at the mid-year check. We did see progress for our 2 targeted subgroups, and it does seem at this time that we will wind up meeting the expectations of that goal that we set at the beginning of the year. The one thing I do want to say about the Acadians assessment is that the assessment is progressive. So things that the kids were assessed on in the fall were a little bit different than what they were assessed on in the spring, in the winter assessment, simply because there's an expectation that children will have learned more things, so therefore the assessment was going to grow with them. So we are still in the process of dissecting some of the difference from the first one to the second one, as they had varied measures that the children were assessed on. But you can go to the next slide, Lewis. Now, while we did not connect this one to the overarching performance of our kids for children in grades 3 to 8, I did want to give you guys a quick snapshot in terms of the progress that we've made from beginning of the year to now for students in grades 3 to 8 as per the iReady assessment. Initially, prior to the changeover to early childhood, we did have intentions around using the iReady assessment as the main assessment for this process. So we've maintained our look as we're going through the year on this particular data. And what we have seen is that there's been a 10% change from beginning of the year assessment to mid-year assessment in terms of the number of students that are performing on or above grade level. An 8% change in students performing 2 or more grade levels below, which is what we obviously want. We want to move those children that are currently below grade level to moving into that space where they get to the on-grade level, into that on-grade level space. And what we have seen is that we're seeing progress for our targeted subgroups within grades 3 to 8 at a rate of around 7%. So it's not proportionate to the overall change that we've seen of 10%, but we are seeing progress nonetheless for our targeted subgroups in 3 to 8 as well. Next slide, please. So what we have noticed and what we do know that we're going to continue to do, other than making sure we dig a little bit deeper into the differences between the fall and winter assessment in general in terms of makeup, we do know that we need to continue to attend to the MTSS work that we've started this school year and last school year, and continue to build on it, specifically through the lens of a review of our units, review of our intervention programs, and review of the professional learning that our teachers and administrators are receiving to identify additional areas that we can grow in moving forward. Yeah.
So I just want to add to what Dr. D'Antona is saying, that this process that we're going through at the district level is also something that we've supported our schools in doing as well. So at our second round of school visits that Dr. D'Antona and I just started, this is the forefront of the conversation that we're having around talk to us about your beginning of year and your mid-year benchmarks, how that's aligned to the goals that you set for your students, and what are some of the adjustments that need to be made so you are achieving these goals. We're also looking very closely at the MTSS supports that are being offered across our schools. And we know MTSS as a district from our presentation at the CEC meeting last month. And then the final piece that we're also engaging in is this coming Monday, our district leadership team is also doing a training for our SLTs to make sure that they have the same understanding. So it's not just happening at schools between principals and teacher teams, but also that the SLT, comprised of parents and other representatives in the community, that they understand this process, and the SLTs are being trained to go through that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. And, you know, it was also, the question was also raised around MTSS and its impact during, you know, a recent meeting. And, you know, I still have some students that I need to add to my database, but what I've seen thus far in terms of growth is growth that is proportionate to the overall growth of the district. So children that were below grade level prior to that have engaged in MTSS have seen similar types of results as our population of children that have not received that. And in the space where I think it is most important for children that were receiving MTSS is because we've identified them as children that were currently not necessarily meeting or on grade level. And what we have seen is for children that were multiple grade levels below, a 14+% change in those children moving up levels from where they began, which is exciting news that we are seeing growth. Obviously, there's a lot more room to grow there, but we are seeing, you know, based on the sampling, which is over a couple of thousand children that are receiving MTSS supports, a positive change as a result. As I complete that full database, I'll give a more in-depth snapshot in terms of what that looks like. But right now, it has demonstrated that we are growing as a result. At this time, it looks like we are making progress, but still more, obviously, that we need to attend to in terms of this work. But it is certainly looking promising across subgroups, and it's not specific to any group. Each of the subgroups is demonstrating a positive result in terms of improvement at this time. Okay, the next goal was around culturally relevant and sustaining curriculum. This goal in particular, we connected to work that we are really excited about as a district, and through Superintendent Domingo's leadership and alignment with some of the work from Central and the Civics for All initiative, all of our schools in District 25 are connected to promoting social action-based projects across our schools. So our goal was really that 100% of our participating schools would design and implement a social action project for our kids, that our kids are really part of developing, organizing, and then engaging in at the school level. And yeah.
So a lot of what we've talked about at the district really comes from our conversations with students, and it's about you know, our vision of creating 21st century learners and citizens of the world, and having the knowledge and understanding in order to do that. So our Civics for All work is really excited, and we're happy today. I had the pleasure of speaking with the student that we are going to present that was recognized both centrally and locally in our local newspaper. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Daytona, but I think our kids are really the most exciting part of this work, because what they're talking about are real community issues or real global issues that they're asking adults to think about differently. So we're really proud of this work.
Thank you, Superintendent Domingo. And we're going to bring in one of our borough members as well, who's really spearheading this work across the district, to talk a little bit about Civics for All and what it means for District 25. And we're going to show you a quick little video of one of our students in District 25 that participated in something that's called Project Soapbox, where children identify an area that really they're passionate about. They engage in research, and I know Ms. Willens is going to talk a little bit about this in a second, and then really do exactly that, get on their soapbox and express why it is that what they are valuing should be not only important to them, but important to everyone. And you'll see what this student in particular did for us, you know, for his community, but most importantly for for pushing around his own beliefs. So Louis, next slide. So as I mentioned, all schools engaged in professional learning to support development of take action projects aligned with the Civics for All curriculum. And this work included students participating in Project Soapbox. Ms. Willings, did you want to just quickly hop in here just for a moment to share a little bit about this work before I show the Soapbox speech and also the example that was in the Queen's Chronicle?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. D'Antona. So Project Soapbox is run by an organization called the MICFA Challenge. They come out of Chicago, and they have partnered with the Central Social Studies and Civics teams to bring this amazing event of student voice to New York City. So this year with District 25, we had a number of schools who participated. As Dr. D'Antona mentioned, the students choose an issue of importance to them. It's not something that's given to them, but they decide on their own. They do their own research, and they prepare and present a 2 to 3 minute speech that outlines their issue, but also includes a call to action. So it's not just their argument or their opinion about something. It is a research-based argument with a call to action. So the student that you're going to hear from, Luca, from IS 25, not only presented for among hundreds of students across the city, but was chosen to be one of the 8 that was to participate in what we call the main stage. And he was also quoted in the Queen's Chronicle right after the event. And he's amazing. I can't wait for you to hear him.
Thank you, Ms. Willens. So Louis, if you can bring us back to the shared screen.
All right, here is Luca.
September 1st, 2021. I will always remember that date. On that day, I experienced one of the scariest days of my life. The remains of Hurricane Ida dropped a record amount of rainfall over our area. The sewers failed, causing torrential flooding. This was a devastating event that took family, friends, people's homes, and people's lives away from them. The sewers in our community and urban planning in general is a serious issue that must be resolved before it's too late. Today, I would like to address to the people of this community to discuss the ignored issues of the sewers in our city. Imagine you were stuck in a situation where your entire house was flooding and walls turned into waterfalls. Would you panic? Probably. In a situation like this, many people don't know what to do, and that is why they're so dangerous and so deadly. Floods have devastating consequences for communities and individuals. The immediate impacts of flooding include loss of human life, damage to property, destruction of crops, loss of livestock, and deterioration of health conditions which can be attributed to waterborne diseases. The solution is simple. We need to upgrade and improve our sewer systems. This dangerous situation must be fixed. The way the systems are today, it adds up to an overall loss of a lot of money for our city and its citizens. This means a weaker economy. Also, old destruction does not allow people to get the correct medical attention, therefore causing more deaths. This cause and effect system will continue if nothing is done. Thus, the sewers in our community must have the correct amount of maintenance and care in order to protect the people in our community. As the person of this community, I would like to share with you my experience with this kind of event. When the storm started, I never thought this is how the night would end up. At around 10 p.m., the water started coming in from my toilet. My family and I placed 2 towels on the floor thinking we could stop this monstrosity of a storm. After a bit, my bathtub overflowed already, filling up my basement with a few inches of dirty water. The absolute worst of it came when my entire garage filled up with sewage water, and then the door collapsed and let about 4 feet of water into my basement. Standing in waist-deep water in the middle of your basement is not a safe or sanitary experience. With this water came a chance of it becoming electrically charged. My family and I grabbed as many items as we can salvage and ran to the higher ground, to safety. We had absolutely no chance of stopping this flood and too heavily relied on the sewers in our community. Our entire block that night was up until the break of dawn, doing whatever they can to salvage their personal belongings as well. Seeing my older neighbors lose possessions that meant a lot to them truly brought tears to my eyes. No one in our community should have to go through this again, and that is why it is absolutely crucial that we fix this problem. This issue, when resolved, could save so much money and so many businesses. Most importantly, people's lives. By putting our money into this project, the citizens of our community will see an upsurge in economic growth later on. Studies show the average homeowner after a flood experiences $2,000 to $5,000 in damage. There are about 2.2 million people living in Queens. That equates to about 900,000 private homes. If every home experiences $3,000 worth of damage, that is over $2 billion worth of damage. $2 billion and countless lives lost in the span of a few hours. We are talking about millions of people. Millions. A simple way the city can fix this issue is the city allocating our tax money more wisely. The task has been a problem for hundreds of years, yet every time ignored. As reported in 2019, less than 2% of our tax money in the U.S. goes towards infrastructure. Consequently, the amount of tax money that goes towards sewers is minimal at best. I strongly believe with our money, we should be able to thrive and live as people of this great community, not living in constant fear of the next storm coming. Floods can have horrific consequences for communities and individuals. We cannot avoid Mother Nature, but we can work on solutions. The sewer in our community and urban planning in general are serious matters that must be resolved before more damage is done or it's too late.
Mr. Di Benedetto was nodding the whole time. I think he was in agreement.
Great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Willens, for sharing your screen. And this is also the snapshot from the Queens Chronicle, where Luca was quoted in terms of what he was able to share during the main stage event, which was shared with representatives from various states that were queuing in and providing feedback to the kids as they engage in this process. And you can see the passion from which the kids were speaking, that this is really truly valuable to them. And that's the experience we're looking to give our kids inside of our classrooms, which is why Ms. Willens and our schools have started investing in this process of professional learning and getting our kids into spaces where they can do this work. Yeah.
So Ms. Willens, if you could just speak very briefly, I think it's important for the community to know that this is happening across all of our schools. But before you do that, I'm just hoping that maybe you can work with Central and your organization, see if we can get Luca in front of the mayor and maybe the governor so we can get some of our infrastructure considered. So I want to just say a big congratulations to Luca. But just, take a moment to talk about some of the work that you've been doing across all of our schools.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Superintendent Domingo. I will be happy to do that. If I can find my screen. Hold on one second. So, yeah, as Superintendent Domingo mentioned, all of the schools in District 25 are engaged in the Civics for All work. And I cannot do this work alone. I am working with Jenna Ryle, who is the Director of Civics for All at Central, and she has been an amazing partner in this work with District 25. I'm also doing this with District 26. I'm so sorry, that was a slip. Sister, I meant to say District 25 and District 26 are doing this together as the only two partner districts in the entire city. There are individual partner schools, and there have been for the last 3 years, but this is the first year that two districts have taken on having their entire districts be part of this initiative. So this is where Civics for All came from. So just think about this statistic. This year, 1 in 300 Americans will be sitting in a New York City DOE classroom. So we have a tremendous opportunity to reach a great number of students. The state of civics right now across the country is one of the reasons why the Civics for All initiative came to be. This data is coming from a 2021 survey done by the American Bar Association, and it addresses the public knowledge of laws and principles that are the bedrock of American democracy. So just think about these statistics for a moment. Only 63.5% of voters voted in the November 2020 election in New York State, and New York State ranks 30th in the nation in voter turnout. 9% of Americans think that the first 10 amendments of the US Constitution are called the Declaration of Independence, and 3% believe that they are called the 10 Commandments.
Sorry, I'm not.
I know that was the scariest one for me as well. 92% of Americans know the first 3 words of the US Constitution, "We the people," and it's probably because of Schoolhouse Rock that we all listened to growing up. And only 39% of Americans can name the 3 branches of government. 22% could not name any, and 13% incorrectly thought the executive branch is superior to the other 2. And that's among other statistics, but these are the ones that I thought were the most telling. So the overview of Civics for All and where this came from. So the initiative that we are carrying across District 25 is to provide our schools with models for civic education that are relevant to our students' lives, just like we heard from Luca. They are interactive and project-based. We are strengthening student voice because we want them to advocate for the issues that matter to them. If we asked our teachers what issues they thought were important to students, it's very different perspective from what the students came up with. We are enabling our students to practice participating and taking informed action themselves. And I'll share about our Take Action projects in a moment. And we are empowering our students to become active and responsible community members who can analyze problems, work with others, and define and address those issues, and then take action. The goals for Civics for All are to strengthen the participatory school culture and community. We're developing our students' civic knowledge, not just their voice, but their knowledge of participatory democracy. And we are using their sense of agency and capacity to engage in their communities. And I'll show you something pretty exciting in a moment. In order for our students to be successfully civically engaged, we need them to understand history, the principles and foundations of our American democracy, so that they can participate in the democratic process. Just registering to vote, and right now our high school students are registering and pre-registering to vote is not a good predictor that they will vote later on, but participating and understanding the democratic process is a greater predictor that they will be voters when the time comes. So with that goal of preparing our students to participate in the democratic process, we have Civics for All. And we believe that civic engagement is an essential part of students' core academic program. It doesn't just live in social studies. It lives across the curriculum. And with the resources and the programming and the professional learning that I, along with Jen Ryle, have been providing to the schools, we are making this civic education relevant to the students' lives. The Civics for All curriculum, which I'll show you in a moment, is exactly what the students need it to be. And however the schools were able to make that fit within their schools. It is not a script. And it is designed to work within whatever schools are already doing. This curriculum was written by New York City for New York City teachers, by New York City teachers, in addition to historians, well-known historians, and museum and cultural partners. So this is the Civics for All curriculum. It comes in two great big binders, but everything is also electronic as well. It is a companion to our Passport to Social Studies curriculum, which all of our schools are using. It has three main parts: the Civics for All lessons, which were written directly for the curriculum itself by the Central Civics team, along with some others. It has connections to direct connections to the Passport to Social Studies curriculum, and partner organizations like the Museum of the City of New York and the New York Historical Society. There are 5 themes that run throughout the curriculum. You'll notice that the themes of rights and responsibilities and the role of the individual are prevalent throughout K through 12, but then there are others that are appropriate for the different grade bands. This is a nonpartisan, project-based curriculum. So the MICVA Challenge, Project Soapbox, which you just got a little taste of, this year, at the very beginning of the year, 9 schools opted to participate. They had competitions across their schools, and they were provided with a number that Central provided each school with the number of winners that they could send. So across the school, across the city, there were hundreds of students who moved on to the citywide showcase. 20 students from District 25 moved on. And of those 20, 2 of our students, Luca, who you just heard from, and Atticus from PS 32, were invited to participate in main stage. And what is even more exciting than that, only 8 students were chosen from the entire city, from all 5 boroughs. Of those hundreds of students, 6 of the 8 were from Queens, North Queens. So 2 from District 25, 2 from District 26, and then 1 each from 24 and 30. It was very, very exciting for us. In addition to Soapbox, so now that Soapbox is over, although we will be having Queens North Soapbox on June 2nd, Chancellor's Day, so other students will have an opportunity to participate. Participatory budgeting is last year and the last few years was only for high schools, but this year the middle schools and the K-8 schools that have middle school grades were invited to participate as well. These schools received an allocation of $2,750 to fund a student-proposed, student-selected project that improves their school community. This is just an image of the participatory budgeting curriculum framework that they followed. The students surveyed their communities. They designed proposals. They did research. They conducted votes in their entire school community, including students, teachers, parents, anyone that was impacting their community. And every school, every middle school and K-8 school has adopted a project. These are the ones I'm aware of so far, that we have student lounges and outdoor spaces for students to decompress being designed right now. The water bottle fillers are a biggie. So there are a couple of schools doing that. Some schools opted to purchase some additional PE equipment, so now that students can share equipment again. And one school is purchasing some new lab materials for their science labs. Everyone else is participating in our Take Action projects. And Dr. D'Antona referenced these in the goal for the district, that every school is participating in a social action project. So these Take Action projects are where our students are taking that civic knowledge that they've gained so far, and they're applying it to an experience. So similar to the participatory budgeting process, there's no money attached to this, but they are all working either by whole class or individual or small groups of students to survey their communities and see what the needs are and design a Take Action project around that. And we will be having a share fair later in the year. This is brand new. So you may or may not be aware that New York State has designed a new pathway for graduation with a seal of civic readiness. This is a pilot year. Right now, 41 high schools across the city are participating. Next year, it will be 400 high schools. And just yesterday, Grover Cleveland High School was awarded the first school in New York City to be approved by New York State to give the civic seal to 22 of their graduating students. So what Central has decided to do is to bring that down to our transition grades. Grades 5 and 8 students this year are eligible for a certificate of civic participation, letting their middle school or high school know that they are civically ready. For them to be eligible this year, they have to have done a soapbox speech. Whether or not they present it live in front of a wider audience, they have to have written a soapbox speech, and they have to have done an individual or small group take action project. And these certificates will be awarded at graduation, and Central will be providing those to us. Next year, grade 8 students will engage in a capstone project that will, right now, they're not sure exactly, but it will include a soapbox speech and a take action project. And these students can earn a half a credit towards high school graduation, so that when they get to high school, they can be on that pathway to get the seal of civic readiness on their diplomas. This week is Civics Week. I have already been to a number of schools. I just wanted to share a few pictures that I took yesterday at IS 237. The assistant principal, Janine Strong, had banners made. They're all over the school. IS 237 celebrates civics for all. They're everywhere. She decorated the outside of the school with these flags. You'll see a photo booth that was put together so that students could come there, and there are, the things that you get at a wedding where you hold them up and their sayings. They can sit and have their pictures taken in front of some civic posters that the students are designing. And on Friday, they will be finishing their civics posters that they will be entering in the citywide contest. So you can see just 2 of them right here. Tomorrow, very exciting event. The students will have an opportunity at 1 o'clock tomorrow to hear from Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And she's doing this only for New York City, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. So we're very, very honored to have her tomorrow. And that is all.
That's great. Thank you so much, Melinda, for Ms. Willens, for sharing all the work that you and Jenna are doing for our kids in District 25.
In District 25.
Right, District 25. We'll omit the other one for this one. But the work is really super important for us, as we want our kids to be able to use that voice and use that voice productively to support positive outcomes for them, regardless of what that may be in terms of their passion. So that particular goal leads us right into the next one, which is around supporting digital citizens. And for us at the district level, we've made a connection and a partnership with Apple. And through this partnership with Apple, we are focused on our students engaging in tasks that really promote that ability for them to apply their learning in an authentic manner with the use of technology as a support inside of this process. Louis, you can go to the next slide. So the goal is that all of our schools that are participating in Apple, which are all of them, will have our kids engaged in a task that's aligned to something that's called the ALT model that was developed by the 2 presenters that are sharing their work from Apple with us. And in their process, they have a tool that allows us to kind of look at our tasks through 2 particular lenses. One around acquisition, meaning making, and transfer, and where our tasks live along the horizontal axis of that graph. And then something called the SAMR model, which is a technology model where we're looking at our tasks through the lens of what's the sophistication of the technology we're using to support the learning experiences for our kids. So when you get to the redefinition model, the example that they use, and I don't know how many of you have heard of this example, but there was a young man years ago that was born without a hand, and his peers really wanted to do something to support him. So they used their knowledge around mathematics, they used their knowledge around technology and the use of a digital printer, and they designed this young man a hand that he was able to use in real life. And that came from the kids and their ability to work collaboratively to design and use technology in a way that, you know, just brought it to a whole other level. So the goal is eventually to get to those spaces. We are in the process of learning through what our tests look like first using this model, so that our kids are experiencing things in an authentic way. Louis, next slide. So some of the examples that have already started up, in District 25, we have, a school that's currently under construction. So one of the projects that the fourth graders engaged in at the school was around the design of the playground when it was all completed, and using the work that they were learning in area and perimeter to design the spaces within the context of the schoolyard for the equipment to go. And this was tied in directly to the work of the school leadership, and they brought in architects to engage with the kids around what that design, the design components that they engage in as professionals. So it's about providing kids not only opportunities to learn the mathematics, but to do it in a way that allows them to apply that learning in a real experience. Another example, one of our schools was in a nonfiction unit of study around gorillas. And in their learning, they recognized that they were being killed off in mass numbers. And as a group of third graders, they decided that they wanted to engage in not only learning more about the gorillas, but also what were they going to do about it. So as a result, they created public service announcements for their peers across their school community. So during my visit, I had an opportunity to watch third graders zoom into a classroom of their peers and present them with why it is that it was important to do something to save the gorillas of the rainforest. And as a result, within this PSA, they raised over $700 as third grade students to adopt a gorilla from the rainforest. So this is the type of work that we're looking to continue to produce inside of our classrooms and provide our kids with those types of experiences on a routine basis. And the last one, really briefly, I know I'm talking a lot. The last one was a kindness project. The kids engaged in budgeting, calculating, logistics around designing a kindness shirt that was celebrated and then made available to kids across the school community. So again, something that they're using their learning in an applied way and in an authentic way to grow their knowledge, but also to support the community. Louis, next slide. Now, one of the things that I'm really excited about when it comes to this work, on the left-hand side, this came from one of our schools, and part of this work is to be able to connect with our kids and their thinking about the work and what it means to them. So prior to engaging in one of these authentic tasks, the students, and on the left-hand side mirrors what the student that's on the right-hand side after the task. So one of the students said, the work I do in my class makes me want to take small breaks before engaging in the authentic project. Two, the work I do in my class makes me want to do more because I'm helping people and making a difference. The work I do in my class makes me feel bored. To the work I do in my class makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. The work I do in my class makes me want to go home because I'm tired and bored. This work I do in my class makes me want to stay in school because I'm clever and proud. So the experiences that our kids are having are putting them into a space of engagement and using that voice for something productive. So we are still in the process of of organizing this work. We have done surveys with our teachers. We are gathering their tasks routinely as we meet every few weeks with a team of teachers from each of our schools where they are growing and building these practices over the course of this year and then moving into next is the goal. So that all of our schools are doing these types of tasks with our kids. Okay. Investing in special education, again, in alignment with our early childhood goal. The focus of this work is around improving outcomes for our special education students in both literacy and in mathematics. The goal here was to increase our performance by 5% from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year assessment. Louis, next slide. And what we have seen progress in both of the areas. We have grown by over 4% for our students with disabilities in reading and over 2% in mathematics. Based on where we are right now, it does seem as though we will be meeting both of those goals by the end of the school year. The reading component, what is really important to emphasize in 19 was the last year where we had the full school year and the testing. Around 21% of our students were on or above grade level when it related to special education. Right now at mid-year, we have surpassed that particular level of where they were a few years ago, just in terms of historical. So the goal is to continue to push that forward as the remainder of this year goes so that we have even better outcomes. Okay, next slide, please. So this next goal is around multilingual learners, and this one was kind of a late entry in the sense that, you know, as we got the new set of expectations with the DCEP, the district leadership team kind of organized around our multilingual learners. We started in one place and we wound up making the change because we felt we had to do something a little bit different. So initially the goal was around engaging our families, and that changed based on feedback from our representatives on the DLT, including our parents, teachers, administrators, that we had to make a shift. So the result of that was around our district social emotional learning assessment, and specifically focused on our English language learners, so that we reduce the number of children that are in need of social emotional learning supports from 20% to 16%, as measured by the DESA assessment that will be administered between now and the end of the school year. Next slide, please. So what the data said across District 25 is, Carly, is there a way, can you just lift that up just so that everyone can see?
Sorry, sure, hold on.
Yeah. So what we learned here in District 25 is of our students that were assessed, which is the very vast majority of students in District 25, there were a couple of domains that were highlighted as more in need than others. One, optimistic thinking was something that was identified as in need, with 19% of our kids being identified as in need of instruction in that area. Goal-directed behavior, also an area that was identified within the social emotional learning survey as in need of instruction. And both of those two things are tied very closely to self-awareness and self-management. So as a district, what all of our schools have done at this point, based on every child that has been identified as in need of instruction, there is a corresponding tiered support process that goes into that, so that kids that have been identified as in need are receiving some kind of support from, whether it's from their classroom teacher, counselor, or other group that some of our schools have organized in order to support our children. Yes.
Just want to add a little bit to that. We have also included in this process our focus on parent chats, where we're using DESA data and we're engaging in by school, we're engaging in talking to teams of parents, showing our DESA data, and getting their feedback on why they think their children may be looking at or approaching school in this way. We're getting some really great information from families that principals in turn are now able to make some immediate decisions that can help support students in this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mango. Next slide, Louis. So what we know, and the reason why we landed on English language learners, of the nearly 3,000 students that were identified as in need of instruction based on the assessment, over 1,000 of them are English language learners, which accounts for 36.5% of children that are within this group are our English language learners. So what does this mean? That means, and I just briefly mentioned this earlier, this includes whole class support, small group activities and lessons, one-on-one lessons for our students, using tools from Aperture, which is the site that offers a variety of different lessons across different grade levels for children that might need some of those additional supports or lessons. The Sanford Harmony program, which is something that all of our schools have access to. And you know, and so on. So some will also embed restorative practices and the like to support our students. Now, yeah.
So in visiting schools, this is another piece that we look very closely at, and there's something very great that's happening in terms of our case teams. Remember, our cases is our cultural, social, emotional, and attendance teams. Is they are working together to align lessons to support teachers, and many of our principals are allowing time throughout the week for teachers to engage in this type of work with their students. Another piece as part of our parent chats, which are held in multiple languages for families that speak languages other than English. I actually sat through a parent chat a few weeks ago, and it was Mandarin speaking families whose children also speak Mandarin, and they were talking about connections to schools that students lost, especially during remote learning and during certain things that we were doing because of social distancing that they asked to bring back, such as this celebratory day like Crazy Hat Day and Pajama Day. And these were ways that students felt connected to schools that our principals are now starting to bring back, all based on information that we're getting from parents.
Yeah, thank you for that. Louis, next slide. So the last goal is around mathematics and improving outcomes for all of our students, and specifically our targeted subgroups, which are Hispanic and Black subgroups in District 25, with the goal of increasing our performance by at least 5% overall. Louis, next slide. So the means by which we're progress monitoring this work is through the iReady assessment. And what we know right now, based on our data, is that we are making progress across all schools, across all grades and subgroups. Overall, we've seen a 14.5% change in students performing on or above grade level from the beginning of the year till now. We've seen an 8% change in students performing 2 or more grade levels below that have improved from where they were. In children in grades kindergarten through 2, we've seen a 17% change of children that were below grade level that are now on grade level. So we are seeing progress for our kids. Data also indicate that we've seen a 13% change in our Hispanic students performing 2 or more grade levels below, meaning that they are improving from that space, and a 14% change in our Black population that were performing 2 or more grade levels below that are now improving as a result. Overall, you're seeing progress for both of these subgroups, a 9.4% change in our Hispanic subgroup performing on or above grade level, and a 9.76% change in our Black subgroup as a result of this data. Now, when you go to the next slide, Louis. So what I also did was, one of the things that iReady has also is kind of got a projection tool to see where the overall performance rate of our students in relationship to the assessment. Right now, it looks as though that we will be meeting our goal for each of our subgroups. We still have more to go with our Black population in relationship to our math goal, but we are making progress. And based on the number of students that we moved into that one grade level below comparatively to where it was in the fall, I do believe that we will meet both of these goals by the end of the year, and obviously hoping that we surpass those expectations. Now, this goal is in this particular component of ensuring college and career readiness as one of the important areas for our children to be high school ready and career ready and beyond is making sure that we have that solid core of mathematical understanding as our children move through the grade level. So this work is really super important, which brings us to our next steps. So Louis, if you can just move to that next slide. So we do know that there is additional work that is still needed. This is similar to the work from our literacy program. MTSS supports really still need to be looked at, focused on, and addressed in terms of what are the interventions that we're giving, which ones are in fact impacting student learning at a different rate, and how do we continue to bolster the ones that are improving outcomes. Part of this work, as Superintendent Mango mentioned, is part of our conversations that we're having during our school visits with our building leaders and how the work that they're doing is impacting student learning. We're going to continue our work with Bank Street College, particularly for our early childhood grade levels, as that is the building block space for math understanding and conceptual understanding. And we do know that if we can build that for our teachers and for our students in the early childhood, they are more likely to be successful as they move through the grade level. So we're going to continue that focus moving on through the remainder of this year, but certainly into next school year as well. And that brings us to a conclusion around our DCEP and alignment of where we are as a district comparatively to the data that we're currently using and analyzing not only at the district level, but at the district leadership team, principal, assistant principal. We're looking at it collectively to make decisions to support our next steps and improvement efforts. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer any of them that you have. I know we just kind of went through all of them in short order, but yeah.
Do any of our council members have questions?
Good evening. Please don't laugh at my question, it was really dumb. In order for high schools to graduate 85% of their students, kids need to enter high school with at least a 3 on the 8th grade assessment, hopefully, or close to 3. The progress we measured so far, is it correlated to, do you anticipate the same kind of improvement in terms of the 3rd grade and higher statewide assessment? Do you understand my
So
question?
I'm not sure. Can you say that one more time? I'm not sure I understand that.
Okay, so you're making progress. I always measure it against a particular standard. Because I have a 30 average, I have 400%. I'm now 60, I'm still 30. So the progress that you measured so far, is it somehow correlated to what they can get on the 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Good, not now.
No, it's a good question. So one of the things that is super important is the alignment between what an assessment tells us in the end. The reliability and validity of assessments is really crucial. So iReady in particular, and this is being an assessment that's used pretty widely at this point, If you look at what the research indicates about iReady, is that there is a relationship between how students perform in iReady and how they would perform on a New York State assessment. Now, in my own way of drilling that information down, there was a relationship that showed that children that did take this past state assessment to iReady from last year, there was a relationship that showed that children that performed on or above grade level on iReady also performed on or above grade level on the state assessment. Is it apples to apples? No, but I do think that there is a relationship there that tells us a little bit of a story. We'll know more as the year progresses, though.
Another interesting point that you make, that we've been exploring at the school level. Just the other day, I was in a school and we were looking at the correlation between iReady assessments and student report card grades. And so we saw a few kids, especially students that were targeted, where there were vast differences between iReady and grades where they were scoring way below grade level in iReady as compared to the grades they were receiving. So that sparked a little bit more of a discussion where we actually called the student down and asked them about how seriously and diligently they take the iReady exam. That student said, I really don't do it. I kind of just click. So that's another important thing that we're promoting in schools and we're promoting with parents to say is that, iReady is not used in judgment in any way. It is used as a way for us to gauge where students are and how we can provide further supports. So especially in our middle schools, we're talking about engaging students to make sure that we're seeing that correlation, and if not, we're exploring why.
Thank you. I think Anne Marie had a question? No. Okay. So any other council members have questions for Dr. D'Antona? Okay, so it was a wonderful presentation. Dr. D'Antona, Melinda Willings, Superintendent DeMango. Your presentation is very promising and encouraging for our students. It makes me want to go back to school, but it makes me very proud to be part of District 25 because your analysis is remarkable and you have wonderful programs, so thank you. So we have a quite busy agenda. In all fairness, I know Louis Latito's presentation regarding digital citizenship is kind of related to what Dr. D'Antona spoke, but I do want to be respectful to Paula Latito, who's here for our Fair Student Funding presentation. Are we ready to take this on?
Yeah. So good evening, everyone, and as you all know and love, I'm going to introduce Paula Latito. Paula, are you here? She is our district.
I am here. Hi, everybody.
In support of helping all of our principals with managing funding, preparing their budgets appropriately, working with SLTs. She will actually be presenting on Monday at our SLT training for all of you SLT members who are interested in attending. If you have not received the invitation or the link, please contact your school principal or your SLT chairperson to get that information. It is Monday from 9 a.m. till 11. It'll also be recorded, so if you are working at that time, we can always give you access to the link. So, Paula, I want to take this opportunity to always say thank you. You are a huge resource for District 25 in helping us align our budgets. And today, we are going to talk about the budget for school year 2022-23. It is a proposed budget, and this is a public engagement opportunity. So I am going to go through the details, and as always, please feel free to stop me midway, but Paula is here to answer any questions that you have regarding the proposal or any of the way we align budgets to the needs of our schools. So, okay. Louis, you control the slide? Okay, so where our funding comes from. The DOE is funded by state, city, and federal dollars, which combine to support our $34 billion budget. New York City provides most of our funding. For the 2021-22 school year, for the 2022-23 school year, the city will contribute $19.5 billion, or 51% of our total budget. Most of our funding from the city comes from what we call tax levy dollars. City tax levy funds are drawn from local taxes, including property tax, sales tax, and personal income tax. Every year, the mayor proposes the amount of city tax levy funding we receive, and the city council must pass the budget into law. New York State is our second largest source of funding. For the 2022-23 school year, the state will contribute $12.8 billion, or 34% of our total budget. The state gets its funding mainly from income and sales tax. Every year, the governor proposes the amount of state funding that we will receive, mainly based on the number and types of students enrolled in our schools. And then the state legislature must pass the budget into law. The federal government is our third largest source of funding. For the 2022-23 school year, the federal government will contribute $5.3 billion, or 14% of our total budget. The federal government gets its funding mainly from income taxes. Every year, Congress proposes a budget, and the president must sign the budget into law. The Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, provides the rules for allocating most of the federal funding we receive. In addition, the DOE has received federal stimulus funding from fiscal year 22 through fiscal year 25, which we will later discuss in this presentation. Next slide. Where our funding goes to. The $38 billion budget provides for the daily instruction and support of over 1 million students every day. The largest share of the budget, at 50%, supports district school budgets, which equals allocations to schools. This includes all dollars given directly to district schools, in addition to allocated fringe and pension costs. Under the oversight of principals and superintendents, school budgets are used for all instructional expenses at the DOE. $19 billion in school budget pays for costs that include salaries and benefits for classroom teachers, classroom paraprofessionals, principals, assistant principals, deans, and other classroom and school-based staff. Funding for textbooks, computers, materials, supplies, etc. Non-instructional costs make up 13%. This supports food, transportation, and debt payments. This pays for non-instructional services that students receive, but are managed outside of the school's budget. The $5 billion is used to pay for costs that include free breakfast and lunch available to all students, bus routes, loan payments on buildings, both new construction and renovations, which are similar to mortgage payments. Non-district schools comprise 17% of the budget. Non-district schools equals charters, non-public schools, students with disabilities attending specialized non-DOE schools. This covers schools and programs that educate New York City students, but are not directly run by New York City DOE. The $6 billion budget includes tuition payments to early childhood centers, or NYCECs, for pre-K and 3K, charter schools, students with disabilities attending specialized schools, and supplemental services to students attending non-public schools. Student support costs encompasses 20% of the budget. These include custodial services, facilities, maintenance, and central academic supports. This $8 billion budget covers the administrative costs and instructional spending outside of school budget, which pays for custodial and facility needs to keep school spaces cleaned and maintained, school safety agents in each school building, and academic support costs. Next slide. The vast majority of instructional costs are allocated directly to school budgets. Funds allocated to schools are under the responsibility of the school principal. Principals, along with their school leadership teams, create the school's comprehensive education plan based on school-specific instructional needs and priorities. Principals work with their SLTs to create the school budget and to pay for the instructional program detailed in the SLT. Superintendents supervise the principal in this process and must approve all school budgets and their alignment with the school's comprehensive education plan. Next slide. Fair student funding is the primary funding source for most community district schools. How do we allocate money to schools? Of the $18 billion allocated to schools, $10 billion is allocated through fair student funding, which we will discuss today in detail. An additional $8 billion in federal, state, and local funding is distributed to schools through school allocation memorandums or SAMs. Fair student funding. The majority of school budgets are allocated through fair student funding. Under fair student funding, we create a school budget based on the individual needs of each student enrolled there. Each school's fair student funding allocation is calculated based on the number of students enrolled at each school and the specific needs of these students. Students' needs are weighted based on the cost of meeting those educational needs. This budgeted method is called a weighted pupil funding model. Non-fair student funding allocations. Not all school funding is allocated through fair student funding. Some school funding, including our large federal grant programs such as Title I, II, III, and FAR, are allocated directly to schools outside of fair student funding. The DOE has approximately 100 separate allocations to schools, each of which is accompanied by a school allocation memorandum or SAM. The scope of these SAMs can be broad and their value may vary. One SAM may go towards hiring a new teacher or social worker, while another SAM could establish a new summer school or pay for computer maintenance. The written description in each SAM provides information about the background of the funds, their purpose, their source, and how they should be used. You can find a full list of SAMs on the DOE's info hub. Next slide. Fair student funding pays for K-12 classroom staff and student supports at DOE community district schools. It provides for each school's primary instructional program and services. Over 90% of fair student funding supports classroom staff and instructional supports for students, which includes classroom teachers, including arts, gym, cluster, quota coverage teachers, teacher absence coverage, after-school program tutoring intervention, school leadership, pupil support, administrative support, OTPS, which are supplies and materials. Services funded outside of fair student funding include mandated individual education plan or IEP-related services and IEP paraprofessionals, also speech teachers, occupational therapists, and one-to-one paraprofessionals. Certain specialized programs such as instructional models specialized for students with autism, pre-K and 3K programs at district schools, and charter schools and District 75 schools. Next slide. The fair student funding weights. These are the proposed weights to determine fair student funding for the 2022-23 school year. Each school will be funded based on their student population. Individual students may be funded by multiple weights depending on each student's needs. As part of your feedback, we hope to hear your input. No changes have been made to the formula weights since 2016-2017. Each school receives a foundation of $225,000. The remainder of the fair student funding is based on student characteristics and their respective weights, in addition to funding for collective bargaining related costs. For 2020-2021,
The base weight of 1 was equal to approximately $4,220 per capita. This per capita is adjusted annually to reflect changes to the citywide teacher salary. The basic grade weight is allocated to schools for all students on their audited October 31st register and is aligned to instructional requirements by student grade level with distinct weights for K-5, 6-8, and 9 through 12. Funding for academic intervention, or AIS, is determined by student academic performance when they enter a school. With poverty funding schools beginning in pre-testing grades, all students in elementary schools, K-8 and K-12 schools. Funding for special education is determined by the percentage of time students spend receiving special education services. 1 weight for student receiving services for less than 20% of their week. Another weight funding students receiving part-time services for up to 59% of their week. And the remaining full-time weights depending on student grade level and their primary instructional model of special class or integrated co-teaching ICT services. Supplemental funding supporting former IEP students in their first year of declassification will continue to support IEP declassification services through the post-IEP transitional support weight. Please note the names of special education weights may change before the formula goes to the PEP for approval. Student eligibility and funding remain unchanged. Funding for English language learners is allocated based on student grade level, reflecting the mandated instructional services, bilingual versus ENL only, weights for former Ls who have achieved proficiency within the past 2 years, which is state designated commanding pupils. Ls with students with interrupted formal education or SIFE status will receive their respective L weight in addition to the SIFE weight. Supplemental per capita funding is allocated for portfolio high schools to support their unique instructional models. Slide 8, next slide. How fair student funding weights work. If per capita were $1. Fair student funding needs are determined based on individual student basis. Each student is evaluated for their eligibility based on data in DOE systems. Most fair student funding determinations are based on data in ATS. The weights add up by student as shown in examples here. If the weight of 1.0 was equal to approximately $4,220 in the 2021-2022 school year. In this example, the weight of 1.0 is equal to $1 for demonstration purposes. In the examples, we have 2 students, Sam and Alex. Both students are elementary school students. This means they are both entitled to the K-5 grade weight of 1.0 shown in the graph in orange. If they were middle schools, they would have a weight of 1.08, and if high schools, a weight of 1.03. Both students are English language learners shown in green. Sam is an elementary school multilingual learner enrolled in a standalone English as a new language ENL program. Therefore, Sam is entitled to the K-5 ENL weight of 0.40. Alex is also an elementary school multilingual learner. Alex is enrolled at a bilingual program at his school. The school has appropriately coded Alex as enrolled in a bilingual program in the DOE scheduling system. As such, Alex is entitled to the K-5 bilingual weight of 0.44. Both students are students with disabilities requiring special education, classroom instructional services. Sam's individualized education program requires less than 20% of Sam's instructional program to be in an IEP setting. Therefore, Sam is entitled to the greater of 20% special education weight of 0.56 shown in yellow. Alex's individual education program, 21 to 59% of Alex's instructional program is to be spent in an IEP setting. Therefore, Alex is entitled to the 21 to 59% special education weight of 1.25 shown in yellow. Both students are students in poverty. Therefore, they are entitled to the Fair Student Funding academic intervention weight of 0.12 shown in blue. When you add all of these pieces together, Sam's Fair Student Funding needs total a weight of 2.08, while Alex's needs total a weight of 2.81. In this example, where the base weight of 1.0 equals $1, then Sam would generate $2.08, while Alex would generate $2.81. In 2021-22, when each weight of 1.0 is equal to $4,223, Sam's weight of 2.08 is equal to approximately $8,800, while Alex's weight of 2.81 is equal to approximately $12,000 under the Fair Student Funding formula. Yes, per child. Okay, next slide. This year, Fair Student Funding is fully funded for the first time ever, thanks to federal stimulus funding and a long-awaited commitment to fully fund state foundation aid in accordance with the Campaign for Fiscal Equity Settlements. This year, Fair Student Funding is fully funded for 100% for all schools in fiscal year 2022 and will be in fiscal year 2023. This is a tremendous achievement made possible by our partners at the state and federal level. This $6 million investment impacted 1,100 schools and 700,000 students in the 2021-22 school year. Each school receiving new funding in 2021-22 received a combination of local funding and federal stimulus funding, while foundation aid formula is being phased in as part of a 3-year phase-in plan. Next slide. DOE has received over $7 billion in federal stimulus funding from fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2025. Along with fully funding Fair Student Funding, the influx of essential federal stimulus resources will allow us to expand programs that have been proven to be effective, boost much needed services, and restore programs we know are valuable to our students. Major initiatives funded with these new resources include investing in early childhood education, including special education, pre-K and 3K, expanding the community schools program, adding new community schools to provide expanded social, emotional, academic, and extracurricular services to students in the highest need communities, expanding PSAL, the Public School Athletics League, to additional schools, expanding mental health supports, and hiring 600 new mental health workers, including social workers and school psychologists. A historic event in mental health and well-being of our students that will build on our strong foundation of social emotional learning and mental health supports. This enables us to respond to the effects of a global pandemic and its impact on our students and their families. In addition, we will be increasing IT support so that all students have access to a digital device and ensuring all students become fully fluent digital citizens for the new economy. As part of this commitment, the DOE will guarantee a device available for every K-12 student by delivering thousands of more devices, train educators in advanced computer science, launch a technology capstone project for all 8th grade students to demonstrate digital literacy skills, and the budget increases help desk support, which will continue our wireless broadband services on more than 500,000 devices purchased for students in response to the pandemic, and builds out our digital learning hub. We will provide critical programs and related services to students with disabilities in grades K-12, including physical and speech therapy and more. This pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on our students with disabilities. The Academic Recovery Plan will make every resource available to better support students with IEPs. It extends from the DOE's youngest learners to students preparing for graduation by launching after-school and Saturday programs for all students with IEPs, expanding committees on preschool special education to expedite evaluation and IEP meetings, provides eligible students ages 21 plus with continued instruction toward receiving their diploma or other exit credentials, or to receive consultation to facilitate post-secondary plans for college and career readiness. It will expand family workshops and information sessions through our Beyond Access series, which supports families of students with disabilities. And it will address learning loss with our increased academic support, which could include assessment results to accelerate learning and targeted services for hiding students and other initiatives. Each focus area includes dedicated supports for multilingual learners and immigrant students to address their unique needs and support their academic progress and language acquisition. Next slide. School budget timeline. February and March, based on initial budget estimates of city and state revenue, the DOE is presenting to CECs with the proposed fair student funding weights for the coming school year. In April and May, the Panel for Education Policy will vote on proposed fair student funding weights for the coming school year. In late spring, the DOE will release budget allocations to schools. In June, principals along with their school leadership team will propose budgets for the coming year. In July, superintendents must certify alignment between school budgets and comprehensive educational plans for the coming year. And in September, the new school year will begin. More information is available online about fair student funding and school budgets. You can find the following online on the DOE's Info Hub under Reports, Financial Data, and Reports. Detailed information about each and every school's budget allocation in the form of a SAM, which is a school allocation memorandum, and a programmatic guide to fair student funding, as well as how each fair student funding allocation is calculated for each school. You can find the following online on each individual school's webpage under Reports and then Budgets and Finances. A detailed information of the school's budget based on different types of funding schools receive, and detailed information as to how the principal has budgeted for the current year, including the number of staff positions and other planned spending. If individuals are that was my notes. Next slide. So at this time, do we have any questions from the audience for Paula?
I'm going to start with a question, Paula. So the presentation regards the city as a whole. Do we know what percentage or what numbers are coming to District 25?
At this time, Joe, we actually don't have that information yet because the budget has to be passed yet, and they're still working on register projections to finalize the number of students that they're projecting for next year. And fair student funding, as well as you know, is based on the number of students and their needs. So we don't have that information for next year at all yet.
Do you know when that information will come out, or?
Yeah, the register projections, I think the final register projections are coming out in April. And then the budget will be passed in April, and then we'll get that information. Usually the new budgets drop in the very end of May.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation in Greek. I just have a question. Well, I work in a school, so I know somewhat what you're talking about. Thank God. I just have a question for you, Paula.
Sure.
What was the average spending in District 25 this year? And according to the new budget, what would you anticipate the per capita dollar amount for school year 2022?
Okay, so the average spending this year is still not determined because schools are actually spending until, well, you know, their purchasing deadline is like April 1st. So they're still spending money and they're still using all their like per diem and their procession activities go to the end of June. So there isn't really a number of how much we spent up to date, because it's a continuous spending till the end of the school year, basically. And what was the second part of the question?
Not really. Let me just put it differently. School year 2019 to 2020, a particular high school increase spent about 7,600 per student, whereas Great Neck spent about 28,000 per student.
Oh, you're talking about the per capita for each student. Yeah, we don't, in District 25, we really don't have that because we might be able to figure it out for last year, but I don't have that information now. But it really depends, like they said, the base grade weight is $4,220. And then as the needs of the kids, if they have extra services, that amount is just increased. So we don't really have an average amount per student.
Thank you.
And it's also based, it's not really based on district, it's based on the needs of individual schools. So
Right.
a school that has much more English language learners will have much more money than a school that doesn't. School that has a larger percentage of special ed, and wherever that falls will have more money per capita.
Right.
Correct.
Are there any other questions? Probably don't see any. Okay, so just one, can I just have one question? Sorry. So, it's interesting that, you indicate that we're fully funded for the first time, right? So what are the effects of that? Because I've sat through these before. What's the difference now? Because you're stating that we're fully funded. How is that
Okay,
in real terms coming to us?
Really, most of our schools, they weren't funded at 100%. We did have some that were up in the 90s, but the schools that were only up to 90%, they got a lot of extra money. We're talking, it was anywhere from, depending on the size of the school again, it could be anywhere from 200,000 to 600,000 more that they received. So and then we've got a lot of stimulus funding this year. So the schools really were able to do so much this year. I mean, Joe, really, they did everything. They purchased things, they hired staff, they hired part-time teachers, they did more PD for teachers, they had more vendors come in to work with the kids. They just did so much this year. And they had a lot of intervention programs going on, a lot.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, I have one more slide. Thank you. Oh, we want your feedback. All public comments will be reviewed by the DOE. Public questions and comments related to the FAST student funding formula will be posted on the DOE's Panel for Education website. Panel for Educational Policy website. Analysis and response of each relevant question and comment will be available for review on the FAST student funding website in advance of the April 27th vote. Here are the ways that you can submit your question and comments. Email to budget public comment at schools.nyc.gov or by phone 212-374-6754. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Domingo. Thank you, Paula. I look forward to seeing you next Monday at the SLT training, which I'm sure you'll have other questions to answer. But thank you for joining us this evening, and always a pleasure to see you.
Same here.
Was there a question in the chat that I
That
can't
was
read?
answered? Okay. What does fully funded actually look like in D25 today versus years prior? But that's
No, I was just reiterating his question. I don't have it. That's what he asked. I was just clarifying what he was asking. That's it.
No, thank you, Venus. Okay,
Hi, Venus.
appreciate it. Nice to see you.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, it's 5 to 9. I'm going to present Louis Latito with the digital citizenship presentation. Are you ready, Louis?
Yes, I am ready, everyone. Hello.
Hi, Louis.
Hey. got the mic. I will be changing my own slides now. Let me just get it ready. So I put the link in the chat to these slides if you guys want to follow along at home. You can also, if you are looking at the slides on your computer or your phone, you can click the links yourself. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the digital citizenship resources that we have available to our children, both at home and in school. And again, everything I'm going over is available on the public DOE website, and there are resources specifically for teachers to use in the classroom on the DOE's Info Hub. So I just wanted to quickly talk about just defining what digital citizenship is. And it refers to the responsible use of technology by anyone who uses computers, the internet, or digital devices to engage with society on any level. So that's like a very high level, broad definition of digital citizenship. And we talk about what it means to be a good digital citizen and a bad digital citizen. So specifically when we're talking about our children in school as students, good digital citizens engage, again, good digital citizenship engages students and shows them how to connect with one another, empathize with one another, and create lasting relationships using digital tools. On the other hand, bad digital citizenship entails cyberbullying, irresponsible use of social media, and the general lack of knowledge about how to safely use the internet, like sharing your private information online and stuff like that. So those are just some definitions of what digital citizenship is and what good and bad digital citizenship looks like. So, as adults, both parents and teachers have the role of really helping and teaching students to be good digital citizens and to support children in using the internet in ways that are both safe, responsible, and appropriate. And we have to help students follow the rules and act in ways that lead to effective digital learning. And we're even though we're back in school, students still continue to engage with each other online, both in school and outside of school. It's kind of like the new reality we have more than ever. So when parents think about digital citizenship, there's a whole bunch of resources for you. First, making sure that your child acts responsibly, and this includes knowing and understanding the DOE discipline code and the DOE's internet accessible use and safety policy, and looking at the DOE's resources that are provided about social media. We have the social media guidelines for students 12 and younger, and we have the social media guidelines for students who are 13 and older. And we're going to look at those in a little bit. It's important for families, for parents to keep track of their children's online use when they're not in school, including mobile apps, games, and other social media platforms. And again, just sharing values with your children and talk to them about what is and what is not acceptable behavior, whether it be online or even in person. Students have a large role in being good digital citizens. Students are always told to follow the rules. Those are those school and classroom rules for using technology, acting responsible at all times, both online and when face-to-face, always collaborating in positive ways that help you and others learn, and to use technology to support an inclusive community that brings people together. Students are always taught to be safe when using the internet. Only use accounts that belong to you. Never log in with someone else's account. Protect your password. Do not share them with others. Don't automatically save passwords on devices that are shared with others. Don't give out personal information online without permission. And always have permission from a parent before meeting anyone in person that you have met only online. Students are reminded to take care of things, including respecting and caring for both student work, whether it be the students or someone else's, and for devices. These devices are expensive, like we just heard during our budget presentation. Lots of money is going to maintaining the city's digital device, inventory. So it's really important to teach children to care for the devices, whether they're from school or from home. And we also teach kids to, take care of each other, act fair and kind online. Only download content that you have permission to use by your teacher. Follow all the instructions of how to use technology. If you don't know, we teach kids, if they don't know if they can use something online, to always ask the owner for permission, and always follow the teacher's directions. If they're doing some type of online fundraiser or other activity, always follow the directions. And we always teach kids, if they see anything online that's inappropriate, threatening, or unkind, to contact a trusted adult or to contact the Respect for All hotline, so that the appropriate actions can be taken and that everyone can remain safe. Teachers support students with becoming good digital citizens by incorporating a lot of these lessons into day-to-day schoolwork, and there are resources available to teachers on the DOE's Info Hub. So teachers teach students how to act when working online with others. They go over all of the rules and guidelines with students to make sure they know how to do everything safely online. If students misbehave, they may lose their online rights, or they might have other consequences based on the DOE discipline code. We protect student information as DOE employees, following transit regulations and FERPA. And we also make sure that we protect children blocking certain websites on DOE devices and on school internet connections. And if a website is ever discovered that's not being blocked, the student should contact the teacher. The teacher should contact the principal to make sure that the website is blocked promptly. And schools can do that on the school-to-school basis. Teachers work with parents to let parents know if students will be communicating with people outside of the class, such as other classes, experts, or authors, for example. And teachers will, for themselves, be following all transit regulations, review educator materials that are available on the Employee Info Hub. And again, if teachers encounter any trouble or any inappropriate use of the internet, they know to contact their supervisor. So families and students and social media. So, families have a new role now while raising kids, and it's helping them behave safely and responsibly when they're using social media. And it can be a challenge because there's lots of social media platforms that parents really don't know how they work. I mean, there are new ones that I don't even use. So the social media guidelines that were created by the DOE help families focus on specific concepts that help children be more responsible when they're on social media. And they are around a few categories: creating your digital image, posting responsibly on social media, considering the consequences of your actions when you're posting on social media, and cyberbullying. And like I said earlier, there are two sets of guidelines for two different age groups. There's 12 and younger, and there's 13 and older. And there is a guide for kids that's directed at children. And then there's a guide for families in both age groups. So there's 4 guides in total, depending on the audience. So this slide just has a whole bunch of resources and links. We're going to quickly jump into some of these resources so I can show you. I'm going to quickly stop sharing my screen and open them up. I'm going to show you what the family guides look like. And then we're going to go from there. All right. So this is the family guide to social media guide. This is the family guide to students' social media guidelines for ages 12 and younger. And you'll see it's broken down to those 4 different categories. And a little introduction about the creation of these guides. And then it talks a little bit about what your digital image is, for example, and how students can understand why it's important to have a good digital image. And then it has specific activities that families can do with their children to kind of help enforce and teach these different concepts. So there's a headline exercise using the newspaper, self-Googling yourself, or if not the child, self-Googling a parent to see what comes up. I recommend doing that before you do it with your child. And then imagining your audience. So when you do post things online, what happens if your grandmother saw it or your priest saw it? How would you feel about that kind of stuff? And just activities like that help bring make kids think a little bit out of the moment and kind of the big picture of what it's like to be a good digital citizen. So this is the family guide for 12 and younger, and then we have one for 13 and over. And again, these things will be the activities are similar, but they're just a little bit more complex for older kids, and they just help families speak to their kids about these concepts and kind of to enforce what they're learning in school at home. And then we have the actual guides for children. And so where the other pages were speaking to parents, these pages are speaking directly to students, to kids, talking about your reputation, be your best self online, be positive, all those things that make a good digital citizen. All of these things are directed at the kid. So we have different audiences that these resources are made for. And the third piece is for teachers, and there's actually activities that they can do in the classroom, comics, stuff that they can incorporate in lessons, and those are all available on the DOE's Info Hub after a teacher logs in with their DOE account. So, are there any questions about these resources? Again, just a really quick introduction about what is available online, and I can put the link in the chat for all of these things.
So Louis, it's a fascinating subject. It's something that is going to become more and more prevalent if it's not already.
Correct.
The question I have for you is, I know that the parents can look it up on the website, but I don't think many parents are actually aware of it. Is there any possibility, or maybe you're doing this already, that the parents can be given the resources from the schools directly so that at least they have it, which is better accessible than them looking for it, right?
Yeah. So in the past, they were like PDFs that you could like print out like a book or a workbook, but they have since gotten rid of that and made them these web pages. So like it's an actual website. What's nice about this is the website can be translated into any language, like in an instant. So the website actually makes it a little bit more accessible than the PDF documents, which were only translated into the 9 DOE languages, and also made it hard to update because they had all these PDFs. So I don't discipline code. So the actual guidelines are not available in something that can be easily, downloaded and printed out. But I'm sure the website can be printed and made available to parents. Yeah. And we'll talk to our principals about it. And
my question was more maybe
to send the links. We can do that as a district.
Yeah.
Send the links to each of the schools. So I was reading actually what Venus was saying. And Venus, when Louis first did this presentation, everyone was really excited about it. So what he does is he meets with President's Council and any PTAs that want him to present. He's happy to present at individual schools around this work. But every year, he also does do a district-wide training for all our parent coordinators as well.
Yep, to make them aware of these resources and that they're there. And, you know, once you have these activities that you can do with your kids, and once teachers are given the resources they can implement in the classroom, that's where the real work happens. So, yeah.
Are there any other questions from council members or anything in the chat? So, very important topic. Students really need to understand the importance of a positive digital citizenship, because you know, once it's out there, I don't think you can get rid of it, right? So everybody needs to act responsibly. Thank you, Louis.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Louis.
Thanks again. So I'm trying, we had a lot that we covered this meeting. It always happens. What time is it? It's 9:10. Do we have anybody on the list for public speaking? Anybody here? Carly?
No. Well, Joe, are you speaking? No? No. Okay.
Well, Joe doesn't want to talk. Are you okay, Mr. Kessler? Are you okay?
Okay, so for the public, we had a special meeting before our calendar meeting where we are looking to fill in the vacancy on our CEC. We have one position that remains. We are 9. We're supposed to be 9 elected CEC members. We're supposed to have 2 members that are appointed by a borough president, and we have our high school representative, who's Catherine Pappas, and she's here this evening. Always a pleasure to see you, Catherine. So we had interviewed 2 of our applicants for the open positions at our special meeting. And at this time, I will entertain any motion to vote on the approval of one of these candidates, or if somebody on the council wants to have an executive session, we can talk about it. This is the time that I'd like to discuss the candidates. Do I hear any motions? So Anne Marie Knable made a motion to vote. Are there any motions to have any executive sessions? Sure.
Do you think we have time tonight for the executive session?
If we have a quorum and we vote on it, we will have to be quick, but you know, we generally have until 9:30. So we have 15 minutes. We also have to do our business meeting. If we're going to vote on the election of the new members, we need to do it during our calendar meeting. So we can do maybe a 5-minute executive session if there are any motions to have executive session.
I'll make the motion to have our executive session right now.
Does anyone on the council second that motion? Okay, so that motion was seconded by Anne Marie. So at this time, Carly,
I'm gonna make a breakout room.
you're gonna have to make a breakout room for the council members.
Yeah.
We'll do it for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll do our, we'll entertain the motion to vote on it, okay? So members of the public, I thank you for your patience. We're going to take a 5-minute executive session in a breakout room. And Carly, you'll let us know when.
Give me one.
And I'll stay in the main room in case anyone comes on and is like, what's going on?
Louis.
Yep. I'll stay here.
I don't see Rush.
You're the best.
Where is Rashmi? Where's Sung Young Lee?
I'm here. I'm here.
I'm here.
Oh, I see you. I just don't see you. So I should have Rashmi, Sana, Michelle and Shirley, right?
Yes.
Am I missing any other CEC members? No, right?
So we should be, we were 8, right? Were we all 8 present? 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're 4 here, so we are 8.
Louis, once I do that, I put open all rooms? Or is it add a room?
Did you add those people to the breakout room?
Yes.
Yeah, you can open all rooms, and the other people in the room shouldn't be assigned to a room.
You gotta click on Michelle. And,
No, it's going on its own.
okay.
But now how do I get into the room? That I've
So
never
you
done.
can go to room
Oh, I
1 and
gotta
click
join
join.
myself.
You gotta
Okay.
just click join, yeah, for next to room number 1.
Okay.
Bye. Carly, you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't know.
Okay, so.
That's probably why the music wasn't stopping, because you weren't talking.
Okay, so we're back and we thank you for your patience, to the members of the public, district office, Carly. So during the breakout session, we had a bit of a discussion and it seems that we don't have enough information to go about and do our vote. And I want to once again thank our candidates, Crystal Gonzalez and Eden Rubenstein. But we are going to probably call another special meeting to be able to speak with you with a little bit more detail, because we don't seem to, the half hour that we had for that special meeting is not really enough for us to vote. So we are hopeful that you'll be able to join us at our special meeting. And then we will have to vote on the new candidate at our next calendar meeting. So at this time, I'll ask we can discuss it during our business meeting, which is going to follow the calendar meeting, about when we'll do our special meeting. So if there are no other new items of business to discuss during the calendar meeting, I'll entertain any motions to adjourn the calendar meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
So when you made the motion to adjourn, Joseph Chow seconded the motion. Our calendar meeting is hereby adjourned. We look forward to seeing you at our April meeting, which will be on Wednesday, April 6th at 7 p.m. We will send out our public notice regarding the agenda and the details of the meeting. And we will follow immediately after this meeting with our business meeting and discuss the business of the CEC. Thank you, everyone. Have a great month of March, great Women's Month, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Night.
So, should we jump right into the business meeting just to get along? Okay. So we're going to move right into our business meeting, starting with the roll call.
Joseph D. Benedetto.
Present.
Wing Yun.
Present.
Anne Marie Knable.
Present.
Joseph Chow.
Present.
Sung Young Lee.
Present.
Rashmi Krishnaraj.
Present.
Michelle Frederick.
Present.
Sana Tayeb.
Present.
And Catherine Evans.
Okay, perfect. So we have quorum, we have everybody here is present. We have did everyone have the opportunity to review the business meeting minutes from last month?
Oh.
Can you put it up there?
It's not long.
So it was quite brief, but we consensus to approve that. So the only thing on the new business is the February 15 expiration for remote meeting was extended through March 5th. Well, that wasn't, we didn't know that until after the meeting, you're right, okay. Okay, so are there any issues with the minutes? Okay, so these minutes are hereby approved. Next, we will discuss, new businesses? Any, other than the special meeting to vote on the new candidates for that one position? Is there any other item for new business that anyone wants to bring up? Mr. Chow, do you have any report backs on your special meeting?
I finished modifying a little bit. What happened was I wrote something down on a piece of paper. My division wife did cleaning. So that's gone. So I try to look at it today. I put something together. I want to meet with everybody either this week or next week to finish it.
Okay, so you're the chair of the subcommittee on anti-Asian.
Yeah, I can call for a meeting. Right?
So you would have to call a special meeting with your subcommittee.
Okay.
And meet,
right.
And then report back, and hopefully have something towards a resolution if that's what you want.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that you meet with your subcommittee, so this way you can.
I have another question for Ms. Mango before she falls asleep.
I'm not.
I'm just saying, it's been so long. You had a long day. I know how to take out. Is there any, well, let me put it differently. Will you allow the principals to kind of organize kids by ability in, let's say, kindergarten or first grade, if we don't have GNT? Would you discourage that, or you wouldn't get involved?
Answer the question. Answer the question.
Yeah, so we were actually waiting for further guidance from Central. I know that you've heard, the mayor and the chancellor are really taking that under consideration as to how that would look at this, at this citywide level. So as soon as I get that information, we can engage in a discussion of what that would look like in District 25.
Many parents are very concerned. Some parents are against it, or some parents will get up.
Right, but it really does depend on what comes from the mayor and the chancellor originally, which is why you see, when about 20 years ago, what they did say was like any kind of past practices that a district had, they allowed them to keep, and then they made modifications. So we are waiting to hear from the mayor and the chancellor to see their next steps around gifted education across the city.
So that kind of ties into what I started the meeting, the calendar meeting at, and probably tied into high school enrollment, right? And again, District 26 approached me about bringing about a resolution, but I think we really need to get someone to come to our next calendar meeting who can discuss high school enrollment and what the criteria is now, or the changes that are expected, because that relates to what District 26 made a resolution on, right? So what you're asking, Joseph, regarding the G&T, I don't know if there's anybody that we can bring in, perhaps at our next calendar meeting to talk about it.
Well, unlike enrollment, that has kind of made their statement through the mayor and chancellor, and I know that there is ongoing discussion at that level, just around and parent engagement and family engagement. They haven't really made their statement yet around gifted education. So where enrollment might be able to speak to this year's practices and how they're hearing from the community, right now we don't have that information yet.
So it's a great idea to bring in enrollment for high school admissions. Maybe we need to get some more opinions from the public regarding the G&T program for our district.
From what I understand, don't even bother bringing the high school enrollment. What they're doing, they're creating basically the lottery, but they're calling it something different. You can have a child who has a 75 average who lumped into category 1 with the kids with 90 and 99 averages, and they have equal opportunity. My former principal said, I don't need pressure pulling. We're not public, right? Okay, good. So, all right. So anyway, according to a particular principal, if you live across the street from Cardozo High School, you have the same opportunity to, as a kid who lives on Staten Island, to get into Cardozo High School. That's not right. Number one. Number two, the Townsend Harris admissions. We had a meeting with the mayor already. kid, they, like last year, they had 5 or 6 different groups. If you're like group 4 or under, you really don't have a chance to get in. But this year, they look at 4 highest grade. So if you have a 75 in Spanish or 75 in English, for the other grades are in the 90s, you'll meet the minimum requirement. You can be group number 1. You have the same opportunity to get in-house hires for someone who has a 98 average.
So I understand that you understand what the enrollment process is, but the point I want to make is the public in our district needs to understand what the rules for enrollment are, as well as the other CEC members, right? So, I mean, we can have this discussion if we bring up a resolution, but we really need to be educated as to what the actual enrollment rules are, right? If we bring in someone from enrollment, and then we can engage in some type of community engagement or discussion. And then I understand what you're saying, Mr. Chow, but I don't think that the current council is aware of what the rules are and the public. So I think we really need to discuss it in a meeting before we even bring about any type of resolution. But I understand what you're saying, and I probably agree with it also, but I think the public we need to engage with our community on it. So Carly and Juliana, if you don't mind, if you can find someone to come to our meeting for April to discuss high school enrollment. Any other items of new business or comments from any of our council members?
So, hey, Joe, as you mentioned the word resolution, something came in my mind. Can we look into doing a resolution on school safety of what happened couple meetings back in terms of each school, like the basic requirement of school safety, that all schools should at least have cameras for whatever the camera requirement is per specific school. I know when the team came, they talked about what the present rules and policies are, and the resolution would be to change or to tweak that policy to make it. It really caught my attention when he said that the school has to bid for there's a bid and offer practice goes on, and I just don't think it's in the state of New York, in New York City, that should be there. Like each school should have, if they ask for safety thing, it should be granted to them. It should not go through a bid offer process.
So what I would suggest, Rashmi, if it concerns you, would you be willing to chair a subcommittee on it?
Yeah,
I know
fine.
we had a public meeting about it. I know that they gave us certain of the rules regarding new schools and cameras. So if you'd like to chair a subcommittee on that and report back and come up with a resolution with what the actual state of affairs are and what you'd like to be what you would like to resolve, then go ahead and chair it. So
okay.
I'd say that are we in agreement that Rashmi can chair that subcommittee? Does anyone want to join Rashmi in participating in
or
this?
I can, if council members are reluctant, what I can do is I can come up with what I think it is and I can present it, and then that gives them a little bit more information, and that's when if they want to join.
Perfect. So why don't you, if you don't mind, preparing it, and we can bring it on at our next business meeting?
Yeah.
And then hopefully, if you want to do a resolution, we can talk about it, and if you prepare it, I think we'll entertain it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, anybody, I mean, it's an open thing. Anybody can reach out to me, but I just don't want anybody to put on the stand that I want to ask them to join me today, because I'm sure it's something that I know in my heart that I want to do it. I just don't have enough facts. So I'll start putting the facts together.
Correct. So if you can gather the facts, report back to us at our next business meeting.
Yeah.
I'll then happy to entertain it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rashmi. Anybody else? Okay, so I know that Juliana is here and she wanted to have a quick update with us. Do we have time? How much time we have here? Juliana, can you get
I'll
it
take,
done?
yes, I'll take 2 minutes. So I would, it's so great to see you all tonight, especially bringing such a wealth of information to the community. What an awesome meeting tonight. This was great. So I think, and thank you for Superintendent and Dr. D'Antona for, pointing out that we should be highlighting Luca for his project Soapbox success centrally. So I really appreciate that comment. Absolutely. I will support Carly in reaching out to the enrollment office. You mentioned a lot, especially during the special meeting, in terms of supports for English language learners and multilingual learning. So I wanted to just share that there are some resources in different to support families on Parent University. So definitely, I mean, I can put that in an email to you, but I wanted to show you what Parent University looks like online and what some of those offerings are. Here is what that looks like. It's parentu.schools.nyc. And one of the chancellor's priorities is helping students, is really increasing these career pathways. And so some of the resources here on Parent University come from the Division of Multilingual Learners, and they're on career panels, and there's a resume workshop, and there are learning supports here for multilingual children, and there's even some information about understanding the L policy. So this is a really, this relates to some of the concerns and topics that came up tonight. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed this out. I think that it would be very good. I know I said 2 minutes. I would just I will end by saying that I hope you will take a look at the chancellor's remarks that were issued last week. If you haven't received those, I will send them again to you. And then I'd like to convene in a FACE check-in next Thursday, March 17th at 6 p.m. So that's March 17th at 6 p.m. If that conflicts, if you end up scheduling a special meeting to meet with your candidates again, I can always be flexible and move that. But I think that it's important. You want to think about that 60 days of filling your vacancy within that as quickly as possible. So I'll move my check-in if we need to, but that's tentative would be on the 17th. Thanks everyone. Great to see you tonight.
Thank you, Juliana. So I'll be honest, I thought that we were gonna do your check-in in lieu of having a separate check-in meeting. Like I thought it would be this evening, but we really ran short on time. So just that the members know it's an optional meeting. You don't have to attend, but you'll get a calendar invite for the March 17th meeting. Do we have any ideas of when we would like to do the special meeting to finish the interviews on the candidates? Do I have any, when you were saying she'd like to meet next Wednesday, March 16th, what time? Does 6:30 work for everyone else? Does it not work for anybody?
It works for me.
Okay. So why don't we plan to have the special meeting with, I'm not sure if the candidates are here. Are they here?
No.
Carly, you'll check with the candidates if they can meet next Wednesday, the 16th at 6:30.
What's an alternative thing?
Otherwise,
Do you guys want to come up with another date in case if they say they
yeah,
can't?
that's what I'm asking. If we can't do the 16th,
So I cannot do 17th and 18th.
So we would have to vote on these candidates at our next calendar meeting, correct, Juliana? So we need to do that special meeting before our April meeting, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So what about the following week, March 23rd?
I'm good.
What week is that? That's a Wednesday?
Yep.
Okay, so that will be the alternate date. Does anyone have a problem with the 23rd?
Same time, 6:30?
6:30?
Okay.
All right, so what Carly will do, she'll contact the candidates, see what date works best with them, and then she'll confirm it with us. We need to have at least 6 members present. Right?
Yeah.
We don't need to have 6
No.
members present. You know,
No, because you won't be voting.
it's, okay, so, you know, if somebody feels that they know already who they want to vote on, then they may not attend, but those that are interested in asking more questions or getting more details, I suggest that you attend one of those meetings, okay? So, having said that, is there any other item of new business or any motions to adjourn the meeting? Go ahead, so I'm assuming that's a motion to adjourn? And Mr. Chow, you're left for the second, okay. So, the meeting is now concluded. Thank you for your time, everyone. I'll see you next week, and to the public, we'll see you next month.
All right, bye.
Everyone, have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Try to recall your
I guess I was
name
falling
is for
asleep.
somebody.
Say that again?